and let us all do we can to build a better future. So, Dan, 2019, 2020, the early stages of the 2020 election cycle and going into the general election cycle, we knew going into it how much of an epic failure the Democratic establishment would be if nothing would fundamentally change.
Right.
And I think we both held out for hope that somehow the progressives were going to be ready during that election cycle. I think we had this idea that there was going to be this massive pushback. And
in 2020?
I
didn't have that hope.
Well, which was Bernie Sanders at least being ready for the election cycle.
I didn't have that hope, I don't think.
Oh, you didn't have that hope?
Maybe I did, and I just don't remember it.
Well, I think we were both on the assumption that at least he would have a strong legal team ready to challenge election fraud.
We did think that was going to happen, yeah.
So there we go. All right. Then I won't put you in the category if you held out some kind of hope. So there we go. I dismiss you from hope. But nonetheless, though, we kept on saying that if the Democrats constantly keep on staying close to being the establishment, if the progressives don't ever fight back, then they're going to deliver nothing. And for all those who've been cheerleading for the Democrats or vote blue no matter who in 2020, that you were going to be disappointed no matter what, and that we had to look at an alternative path. Well, as we all know, the Build Back Better bill that started at $7 trillion, and with House progressives constantly bending over backwards to appease Manchin and the Democratic establishment, it went from $7 trillion all the way down to $1.75 trillion. Now, am I wrong? There we go. So there we go. See democracy right there.
I would say it went down to zero. I mean, they gave up everything to pass nothing.
True. And the thing is, the only thing that's going to be in there that's going to benefit anyone are, of course, the top 1%. So, nonetheless, Build Back Better being hyped up as something good wasn't going to do a goddamn thing, because look at the number that it has now. I mean, $1.75 trillion isn't even going to do a scratch to invest into our infrastructure, and we're still far, far behind. So, I want to pull up this wonderful tweet that I saw from Leftist News, LOL, at all the crap libs who went after leftists for calling out the squad, now calling out Pramila Jayapal in the same way. This is violence. First tweet, and it's a picture right here that I want to pull up. It's of David Dole saying, LOL, she needs to step out of that leadership position. What a clown. Representing on how Pramila Jayapal just didn't even push back. And she's the leader of the Progressive Caucus.
Yeah, I mean, those are words.
And of course, here we have Cenk Uygur. This is literally insane. How could a strategy that completely failed to be exactly the right strategy, unless she wanted to fail, represent Pramila Jayapal? Did you want the bill to fail, or was your strategy wrong? And it has to deal with him retweeting with this Ida Chavez, who says, Jayapal thinks progressive strategy on Build Back Better worked really well. I think our strategy was exactly the right strategy. The Humanist Report. She writes excellent legislation, but she really should not be a leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
These are all the same people that attacked everyone that disagreed with this statement not too long ago. It's like they're always yelling at the people that are right, eventually adopting the position when it suits them. These are also the same people. Yeah, these are also the same people who view themselves as arbiters of truth. They have that same kind of arrogance that like CNN has. It's like, well, we know best because we've been around longest and we have viewers, but they keep following us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, one other person too, Anna Kasparian. Imagine having the audacity to tweet this after giving all your leverage away after helping Democrats pass their corporate handout infrastructure bill. Gee, I thought Build Back Better was supposed to be great, Anna. Looking forward to all the tolls that come along with Congress agreeing to privatize more public infrastructure. And this has to deal with a retweet from Pramila Jayapal. Enough with the delays. Let's get this done and deliver for working people. Pramila Jayapal, I played a video of her basically admitting how she compromised the $7 trillion down to the number that it is now to appease Manchin and the corporate Democrats. Now, remember, I said on the show, we have said, and Daniel, you put it down perfectly, that when the Build Back Better bill fails, it's going to cost the Democratic Party in 2020. These are facts. These are things we have to address and realize. And the thing is, it was the social responsibility of all independent media to hold all political parties accountable. I understand that a lot of these were triggered by Trump. I get what he represents. But the thing is, if you're going to have Trump derangement syndrome and somehow be blinded by the Democrats' own incompetence, you got to own up to it. We have to remember, a lot of these large channels kept on saying that, oh, we have to vote Democrat. We have to support the progressives. We have to do this. We have to, somehow there's a plan. We could push Biden to the left. That didn't work out.
It was never going for it.
And the thing is, that impacts all independent media, especially with this whole carrying water for the progressive movement, especially in the Democratic Party. Because now, really, what can these cul-de-sac progressives, no matter who, K-Hive, blue check marks on Twitter, what kind of propaganda are you going to use? What, Trump's running again? We know that. He's going to do it. I'd be surprised if he's not going to do it. So the thing is, we should have been critical of these lawmakers from day one. And somehow, the grift was in, and also the idea of maybe getting these progressive lawmakers on the show. But didn't we not cover the story earlier where Cenk was basically admitting that a lot of these lawmakers that they helped promote during 2018 don't even show up on their show or answer their messages anymore? Which is pretty pathetic.
Yeah, it's like, okay, all the people we're talking about, your Cenk Uygur and his umbrella, and your basically, like, I'm going to call them radio progressives. That's your David Pakmans, it's your Secular Talks, it's your Sam Cedars, TYT, it's your legacy outlets for progressives. Everything that we said was going to happen in terms of how this was all going to blow up in everyone's face and they wouldn't get what they wanted, we were attacked. I mean, and I know other larger channels were attacked a lot more directly than we were. Mm-hmm. And again, we just happened to be right again because we understand the reason these things are happening. We understand that the progressives in Congress aren't. We understand that the squad is a bunch of individuals who refuse to align with each other, and none of them have any real backbone because they've put their minds to the point where, like, well, if I help one person, it's better than helping 1,000, even though that's not true. You're not helping one person. You're injuring 999 and helping, maybe, hypothetically, one person. So everything's played out. And now the other part of this is all of these people that have these large followings on YouTube and elsewhere, they're calling it out when? Not just last minute, but yes. It's where it always is called out. It's the same thing with Mr. Jules and everything like that. Mm-hmm. It's always after it's too late. That's when they cry the most. That's when they talk the most. When would it have been really important to affect the way this vote happened? Not now. Months ago would have been the time to affect this bill. Months ago would be getting their local progressive movements activated and making sure that AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and all these other people know that they're going to be in trouble if they don't act and start mobilizing potentially for or against them. But of course that wasn't done. Why was it not done? Because places like TYT and radio progressives told everyone in their networks, it's fine, it's covered, they're going to deliver for us. Did they end up doing that? Of course not. You could have asked us, you could have asked a number of other channels, but as you guys know, if you don't agree with the majority and you're a leftist, you have to borg. You just have to go with whatever anyone says in authority, and that's the way the left is now. Is exactly no different from Republicans, which goes to something else that we've been saying for a long time. The difference between Democrats and Republicans is really not that much of a difference at all. And now their bases are starting to get closer aligned. It just depends on what part of the base you're talking about. But tell me that these people are not acting like the way that we would call out Republicans. They're doing the exact same thing in the exact same way for the exact same pay as they would have any other way. So, again, here we are. Progressive media, when it counted, told us to shut up and that they had it covered. And now that it's too late to do anything, now is the time that they're like, oh, why didn't you do the right thing, Representative? These are the same people that will never admit fault. They're going to still say, call David Pakman on his radio show, point this out. I did everything right. That's all they're going to say. Because they've lost the ability to take responsibility for their actions.
Yeah, but there's another thing too, and that is I don't believe this outrage as much because I think it's just right now, like you said, when it's all done, it doesn't matter. They should have been raising their voices earlier on, like how we said how AOC and Bernie should have been more aggressive towards Biden day one of his administration, really pushing him left if they gave a damn. But no, Biden is Bernie's good friend, and AOC said Biden-Harris exceeded expectations. She gave him an A. Well, it turns out they're getting one big middle. That's what they're getting. And the thing is, brace yourself, because I'm going to see them flip up. All those 4 people that she said, especially with Cenk, it's going to flip up. Because here, let's pull up this other tweet here, where, oh, hey, it's a pleasure to get establishment Democrat trolls back in my replies. It's been a while, guys. I missed you. Oh.
It's been a while. That might be the most key of keywords ever. And now what Cenk will do is he's done this before. He'll have like months of being pro-establishment.
Yep.
They're going to get it covered. AOC, Bernie, they're going to get it covered. We don't have to worry. And then it falls apart. And when it falls apart, Cenk's like, Bernie, AOC. And he shakes his finger, shakes his thumb. Then a month goes by. They're going to help us again. That's how it always goes.
Yep, and hold on, it continues on. Now I got Democratic hacks saying I'm being too unkind to Biden, Pelosi, etc. because I should applaud their failures instead. Cenk, there was nothing they could do. Well, Cenk, you're also the same person. I actually want to pull up this tweet here from one of our own followers on Patreon, Mad Matt Chicago. He just tweets at him, I just remind them that you voted for Biden and said nothing when AOC voted for Pelosi for Speaker of the House, and you should be back in good standing with them. You're welcome. Hey, by the way, again, good pointing out, because remember, Cenk was all on board for Nancy Pelosi to become Speaker of the House. He was demanding those House progressives not join Jimmy Dore, Breonna Joy Gray, Justin Jackson, and Dr. Cornel Willis for forced to vote. Remember.
Can you imagine how different the world might have been? Potentially. I mean, maybe it wouldn't have. But if back when forced to vote was happening, if Cenk Uygur didn't do a backflip on his original comments on the movement.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, would it solve everything? No, but what a sight it would have been. Jimmy Dore, the way he handled that opening message was perfect. I forgive you. I forgive me. Let's put everything aside. Let's work on something good. I think that's great.
Isn't it just the craziest thing that, hey, maybe we should force our elected officials to do the thing that we elect them to do, turned into like a sexual assault allegation? Isn't it amazing how that devolved from its original point so quickly?
I know.
As if it was guided.
And the thing is, too, remember, because it's not only just forced to vote for Medicare for All that Dr. Cornel Willis, Justin Jackson, Breonna Joy Gray, Jimmy Dore, and so many other heroic people were fighting for. Because they wanted the squad members, those 15 congressmen and women who ran on Medicare for All, to join them and maybe withhold their vote against Nancy Pelosi. But Cenk was all on board for Nancy being Speaker of the House. Cenk was all on board for the pragmatic reasons of Bernie dropping out of the race and endorsing Biden. But it gets even a little bit worse than that, because it goes to show you how Cenk and the rest of these other cul-de-sac progressives don't stand up against the Democratic establishment. And that is when forced to vote for 15, which I agreed, failed miserably. And where was the outrage then?
Yeah, it's like, again, my point is systemically, they fight only when there's no chance of changing the outcome. There's no chance of hurting the process. And they don't fight when there is a chance of doing something. And that is the most despicable thing, because it means that they're just playing it for numbers. You know, I'm sure that I actually would love to know if there's some way for us to check who gets authoritative voice ranks and like who we can tell if someone's on that or not.
Okay.
But it's like, you know, Kyle Kalinske, like, in a nutshell as well. It's like either they're like in a Cenk where they're just bullheaded going in a direction that's terrible, or in like Kyle's case, he just doesn't have like a spine to like actually deal with the problems when they introduce. Like, he got kicked off his own show when being interviewed with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Crystal was interviewing Bernie, and
he got kicked off his own. Like, also, what does that say? Like, if I was Kyle, you know what I would have done during the interview? I would have pulled up a chair and brought it over there. I want to get video of Bernie Sanders walking away from Kyle Kalinske when he comes in. Yeah. And ask, Bernie, don't you love your supporters?
Yeah.
But no, they don't want to do anything. And you know, here we are.
Isn't it interesting, too? Because I want to pull up the last video, too. But real quick, because there's a couple of things I want to mention. Because remember, you know, this whole idea of running a show and being aggressive on it and, you know, having a backbone. The thing is, notice Kyle was kicked off his show when Bernie was on, right? And Bernie was the one making demands on that. Him and his staff were making demands. Mm-hmm. But interesting enough, when we look at TYT, if we wind back the clocks, where apparently there was that story that Tulsi came into TYT, rebel headquarters, trying to make demands. And it's like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just the failure of a lot of people that earned a lot of trust early on in the independent media networks, and just constantly now carrying water for the Democratic Party. They also ignored the 3-day General Strike Summit or even the March for Medicare for All. Where are these people? And whenever there is a thing like a General Strike or March for Medicare for All or Force to Vote or even Force to Vote for 15, which I agreed with because I want to be consistent, I like that Force to Vote for 15, and I agreed with Cenk on this, but he didn't fight for it, so there we go. But these four things, no fight back, no backbone, and no calling out the politicians until it's all done, like you said.
And no personal responsibility.
Agreed.
At no point do we have a moment where Cenk or someone else sits down on camera. Like, actually, to be completely fair, because we have to be consistent, like, Kyle's had this, but he's not done them fully, but he's at least done it to some category that, like, Pac-Man hasn't, Cedar hasn't, Cenk hasn't. Sit down and go, put a camera on me for a second.
I'll put the camera on.
Yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna be Cenk for a second. Guys, I gotta let you know I made a mistake. I should have done XYZ, and I did ZYX. And I think that if I had acted slightly differently, we might have had a better outcome. And I'm really sorry, guys, for doing this. I'm gonna work better to not do this again. But I am sorry. But you'll never see that. You'll never see that. You've seen us do that. We get a story wrong. We're like, hey, guys, we screwed up on this story. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but it's like when it does, we're we're very direct with you guys. They don't have that responsibility. I think that if you don't have personal responsibility as part of your life or accepting business mistakes that you make and admitting them, how can you ever correct yourself in your path if your entire path is ignoring the things that you do wrong?
Agreed 100%. So let's pull up this next video. It's from Case Study QB. Yes, it's Morning Joe, and it relates to this story too, because the thing is, the progressives, AOC, Ellen Omar reported on this yesterday, are still saying we got to take on Manchin. But let's hear this perspective, because at the end of the day, all the people that carried water for the entire progressives in the United States House and Senate, at the end, they're not going to fight back. They're going to get walked over, and they're going to get their marching orders from the Democratic establishment. Let's play this video.
I was quite taken, again, not because of Joe Manchin's feelings, just because of the realities of Washington, D.C. I was taken by those attacks and attacks by other Democrats, which we're going to read in a second, which seems to invite Joe Manchin to become a Republican. Democrats think it can't get worse. Oh. It can always get worse. Jim Jeffords left the Republican Party in 2002 and gave Democrats control of the Senate because of his problems with George W. Bush. So help me understand what led to that. And then
Mika Brzezinski's husband over there, a Republican who's now on NBC.
True. There you go. What?
After that, was there an understanding of the White House that they needed to cool down and figure out a way to restart talks with Manchin? Because with Manchin, it's never over. It's never over. He can say it's over, but there's always another deal to be had. They can chop up this plan and pass the plan piece by piece. I mean, there's always another deal with this guy. Yeah.
Now, the reason why I played that video is because notice at the end, Biden-Harris administration re-inviting Manchin. I want to remind TYT, Human Rights Report, David Dole, Sam Cedar, everyone else, look, they're never going to care about progressive issues. They're not going to bring in Bernie or AOC, because this whole idea of keeping our powder dry and not challenging the Democratic leadership, not voting out Nancy Pelosi or even holding her accountable for her actions, it's going to cost us. And the thing is, it's going to cost the progressive movement. who's going to trust a lot of these lawmakers who just said, oh, well, we gave up Build Back Better. They negotiated from $7 trillion down to $1.75 trillion. That's terrible negotiating skills. Why not fight back? Why not push back? Why not force a vote for Medicare for all, or force a vote for 15, or march for Medicare for all, or hashtag general strike? The thing is, when you constantly keep on carrying water for the Democratic Party and the House progressives that are in the Democratic Party, and you get nothing in return, tell me, how are you going to inspire people to actively get involved and try and fight for a better future? Because so far, everything that we're seeing is rinse, cycle, repeat. And I'm tired of seeing it. And I want to see something different. And so all those tweets that I read earlier from them, being angry at Representative Pramila Jayapal, and they should be, by constantly protecting any kind of criticism towards the House progressives, you allowed that to take place in the first place.
Yeah, I think another thing, again, this goes back to personal responsibility, that if someone like Cenk or TYT admits that AOC is not that good of a representative, they also have to implicitly admit that they were wrong to pick her.
Yeah.
It's they're tied to her even though they want. It's like AOC won't come on their show, won't do anything with them, took their audience, took their money to get elected in the first place, and has ghosted them, and they think they have a connection still because they still picked them.
Yeah.
They were still there when that happened. They still made all these choices. And to their credit, their thought was, hey, look, we want to get people that aren't taking private money interests. And it seems like for the most part, they still aren't, but it still misses everything about politics to think that just not taking corporate PAC money is enough. Then again, a lot of them are rescinded. You have to force their actions to be a certain way. And that means when you elect them, they have to be terrified of their base back at home.
Yeah.
They can't, because right now AOC goes, my base loves me. I don't have to do anything. I still can raise a huge amount of money and I can still be in the income. There's no incentive for AOC to change what she's doing, but she's going to get reelected. She's going to continually get reelected. She's going to continue to have this power that she has. She's going to continue to get on these boards, and she's also going to continue to change nothing. And you can't just disalign corporate interest money. You have to align. This is all rules for rulers. Just because you've eliminated certain types of keys doesn't mean you've aligned certain types of keys. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. So yes, finger wag as much as you want. But if you're doing nothing but words and statements, action and deeds count more. So there we go.